Hey everyone, today we're going to look at a really dark and disturbing movie that a lot of you have mentioned, the nuclear apocalyptic drama, Threads. Please like and subscribe and let's dive in. It's Saturday, March 5th in Sheffield, a city in South Yorkshire, England. Ruth Beckett and Jimmy Kemp are enjoying some Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry as some fighter jets fly overhead. Two normal young adults enjoying their lives and unaware of the horrors that await them. Jimmy changes the radio to a football game and we hear a brief news report about instability in Iran and civil war. It's Thursday, May 5th, and we see a news report talking about Soviet convoys moving throughout Iran. Jimmy and Ruth are at a pub where Ruth gives him the news that she's pregnant. The two don't really know what to do about it. It's now Sunday, May 8th, and US and Soviets are in a bit of a standoff over Iran. Jimmy's parents are giving Jimmy a bit of hell for his predicament. His parents ask him what they're going to do and he says he's going to marry her. His mother asks him if he thought about abortion. He says they have, but they want to get married and have the baby. His nosy brother asks what an abortion is and is told to keep quiet. Jimmy feeds his birds and we hear another report that the US may move in forces if the Soviets don't move out of Iran. There is a NATO airbase 17 miles outside of Sheffield. It's now Wednesday, May 11th. Ruth is with her parents waiting to meet Jimmy's family, while a news report talks about missing US submarines. Thursday, May 12th, and the Soviets are protesting loudly over what they call dangerous provocation from the United States, as one of their ships were damaged. Jimmy and Ruth are checking out a house they're going to be buying. They want to strip the wallpaper off and have a garden for the children. Another news report and the US president is holding the Soviets responsible for the deaths of the men and women aboard the missing submarine. The narrator talks about Britain's emergency plans for war. If central government fails, power can be transferred to local officials across the country. It's now Tuesday, May 17th. The US is sending troops into Iran in an attempt to push back the Soviets, while Jimmy and Ruth just go about their lives. A local government official calls his secretary telling her to contact a list of people of various backgrounds and have them report here immediately. Shops are becoming overwhelmed as people are panic buying. It's now Thursday, May 19th. We hear reports that the remaining units in the US 10th Airborne Division have taken up defensive positions to block any possible moves towards the oil fields. Jimmy is talking with a friend and he just needs to finish the living room and bedroom before they can move in the house. A fighter jet suddenly flies overhead. It's the third one in a short time. Jimmy's going out for a bit of drinking and thinks nothing of the jets. He's at the pub with his friend Bob enjoying a few pints. A report comes on the TV saying the US is accusing the Soviets of moving nuclear warheads into their base. Bob, however, seems to be more interested in some women at the other end of the pub. Jimmy worries about what all this could possibly lead to, but Bob manages to convince him to go see those women. We see a car with some steamed up windows. Military vehicles pass by and it's Jimmy, and he's been messing around with one of the ladies from the pub. It's now Saturday, May 21st. The US has put out an ultimatum of joint removal of all Soviet and US forces by noon on Sunday, but has not heard back. Protesters are out marching against the rising tensions. It's Sunday, May 22nd. Ruth is at a peace rally and the crowd starts to get heated. It's 12 noon and the ultimatum has expired. B-52s strike with conventional weapons on the Soviets. The Soviets, however, counter with nuclear-tipped air defense missiles, taking out most of the B-52s. The US responds with a single nuclear attack on the Soviet base, putting an end to the exchange. Stores are being wiped clean of all canned goods and anything that can be stored for long periods of time. A man enters the store telling everyone the US and Soviets have started fighting and everyone starts to panic. Jimmy is with his birds while a news report tells the public to remain calm and that a peaceful resolution can be achieved. Mass looting and fear, however, has gripped the city. Tuesday, May 24th, and everyone fears the worst and they're all packing and trying to leave the city. Jimmy is working in a shop while we hear that emergency powers are enacted, giving government the power to requisition premises and materials for civil defense purposes. There are riots and protests erupting worldwide. Hospitals have been cleared out for expected casualties. Ruth's elderly grandmother is brought home because of this. The streets are filled as people are trying to leave the city. Blockades are set up, only allowing travel for essential workers. Wednesday, May 25th, and growing evidence shows more nuclear weapons have been used in the Middle East. Violence erupts as a protest is broken up by police, while local government officials meet in a basement to discuss what they're going to do. Jimmy and Ruth are removing the wallpaper from one of the rooms, while the radio explains what to do if emergency alarm sounds. Ruth is distraught and terrified. Jimmy hugs her and tries to comfort her. Thursday, May 26th. Ruth is experiencing morning sickness while her father looks over ways to plan for survival. We're in the basement with the emergency officials, and most don't even know what they're supposed to be doing and have had little training. We see a report on TVs about the deadliness of the fallout. The officials are talking about food stock when an attack emergency is announced. Jimmy is at work and the warning sirens start to sound. He hides under a truck with Bob as mass panic erupts in the streets. We see a bright flash as a single warhead explodes high above the North Sea, burning out many electrical systems. Another missile hits the NATO base as the bright flash blinds the onlookers. A massive mushroom cloud can be seen in the distance. The bomb causes mass destruction, destroying storefronts and homes. Jimmy gets out from under the truck and the two men see the cloud. Jimmy gets in a car trying to go to Ruth, but it won't start, so he starts running to her. A third bomb strikes. The film gets eerily quiet as we see people and things burn. Suddenly, it's mass destruction as buildings start exploding and crumbling from the bomb. 210 megatons have fallen down on the UK. Everything and everyone burns from the fires. Fallout is now imminent. Ruth and her family are still alive, but Ruth is petrified. An hour and 25 minutes after the first attack, and the first fallout settles on Sheffield. Ruth's family is dealing with the symptoms of radiation sickness. Friday, May 27th, one day after the attack. Jimmy's parents leave the rubble to look for their youngest son, Michael. His body unfortunately found buried under the debris. Sunday, May 29th, 3 days after the attack. Emergency officials talk about the devastation in all the areas affected. 1 week after the attack. Food stocks are controlled by central government, with no food distribution likely for another week. Back with Ruth's family, and her parents try giving her food, but she's given up all hope. She knows Jimmy's dead and doesn't care about the baby anymore. Ruth's grandmother has died and they move her to another room, covering her with a blanket. Ruth leaves the home in search of Jimmy. Sunday, June 5th, 10 days after the attack. The city is in complete ruin. Ruth wanders the streets seeing all the death and destruction. There are charred corpses everywhere she looks. The debris from the bombs blanket the sky, shutting out the sun's heat and light. The temperature will drop as much as 25 degrees centigrade. Monday, June 6, 11 days after the attack. Ruth finds the body of Jimmy's mother. Angry, hungry people are told to go home as there's no more food for today. The people are tear gassed and a man that climbs over the fence is gunned down. Saturday, June 11th, 16 days after the attack. All the sick and dying are heading to the hospital, but the health personnel are completely overwhelmed. Ruth is there hoping to find Jimmy, but it's nothing but screams and agony from those being worked on. The rations given to the people are going to be cut to 500 calories and 1,000 for any manual workers. Friday, June 17th, 22 days after the attack. Rats are feeding on the dead and spreading disease. Looters are leaving Ruth's home after having killed her parents. One of the looters is shot and the others are taken away. Any man, woman, or child in good physical shape is being taken for mandatory reconstruction as they rebuild. Food is the only commodity now, given as reward or withheld as punishment. The grim reality is those that can't work starve. The bodies of the dead are left to rot, as burying them is a waste of manpower and resources. 4 weeks after the attack, detention camps are set up to hold looters. Their numbers grow by the day. Ruth arrives back home, but the stench is unbearable. 5 weeks after the attack, none of the necessities we take for granted are available. People wander the countryside, dying from the effects of fallout. Ruth arrives at Buxton, 20 miles from Sheffield. A man is told he has to take people in his house, and he has no choice under the new laws. It doesn't last long, however, as they're immediately thrown out. Ruth is eating and Jimmy's friend Bob finds her. He asks about Jimmy, but she doesn't say anything. 6 weeks after the attack, Ruth and Jimmy find a dead sheep, wondering if it's okay to eat. With no other options, however, they feed on the irradiated flesh of the animal. September, 4 months after the attack. Crops yield very little in ripened offerings, as the attack was in the early spring. Ruth begins having contractions as the baby is ready to be born. She finds a place full of hay and lays down to birth the baby. Ruth gives birth to a baby girl and she cries over the world this poor thing has to live in. It's Christmas and Ruth sits around a fire with others as her daughter cries. The cold of winter mixed with the radiation take a heavy toll on the very young and old. May, 1 year after the attack. Ruth barters with a man for some dead rats as there's no other food. And the skies start to clear, allowing sun to shine down again. 3 to 8 years after the attack, the population reaches critical levels. 10 years after the attack, Ruth and her daughter are working in a field when Ruth collapses. Ruth has aged incredibly over the 10-year span as her daughter is trying to wake her for work. She opens her eyes and we see cataracts have completely taken over. Ruth dies and her daughter leaves, taking some of her personal belongings. Her daughter Jane is mentally impaired due to the radiation she experienced while still in the womb. 13 years after the attack, some forms of industry begin to return, steam engines and the like. Jane and a couple boys are being chased by a man after looting some food, but one of the boys is shot dead. The two fight over the stolen food and the boy sexually assaults her. Jane, a now pregnant teen, walks along the rubble of a once thriving city. She walks past a place where we hear Johnny Be Good playing, the same song her parents were listening to when they thought they had their whole lives ahead of them. Jane walks into a makeshift hospital as her baby is coming. She gives birth, but unfortunately the baby is stillborn. Jane goes to scream, but the film freezes and comes to an end. Oh boy, this was a very dark movie. As suggested by many during my Miracle Mile video, I thought I should check it out, but this is pretty haunting. I hope you enjoyed today's video, although I don't know if enjoy is the right word. If you'd like more, please like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, take care.